And welcome back, everyone, to the 16th episode of the Sports Coverage Podcast. My name is Andrew, and I'm alongside my co-host, Vince. And today I'm already in a new location after just starting recording the podcast with our faces last week. But Vince is also now in a new location, which will probably be his permanent one. So don't get used to my background, but get used to his. And we had a very eventful week in sports this week. It was Thanksgiving, so late Thanksgiving to everyone, and it is the start of the holiday season. So we'll have a lot of fun stuff coming out over the next month. But we're going to start with the NFL as always. And like I said, Thanksgiving was last week, so we're going to do a quick Thanksgiving football recap because as you might have seen, we did 3 clips previewing each of the games, but now we're going to talk about what ultimately happened and how wrong some of our predictions were. So the first game, Lions-Packers, we both said the Lions would win, which I think is what at least 90% of the U.S. said would win. But we were a little wrong there. Love went off during that game, which is something we said was a big weakness for the Packers. So Vince, what went right for the Packers in that game and what didn't go right for the Lions?
Listen, what I think really went right for the Packers was just Jordan Love being focused and being mindful of what he decided to do with the ball during the game. And I think he really just knew that he was going to have some guys out during the game, against the Lions. A lot of people were out with injuries. So being able to, come up clutch and actually, carry your team to a huge, huge victory over a Lions team that has looked really, really strong over the course of the season is just great. And I really just think because of Jordan Love's ability to just be as great as he was, just led to their victory.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it wasn't even necessarily a super close game. If anything, if the Packers were going to win, it should have been a close game, and I think the Lions' defense just kind of failed to hold off Julian Love, especially when it came to the run game. And so it was just a rough game overall for the Lions, I think, and I think there's things that they can definitely improve on after playing this game.
And listen, I just take a look back last week when they played the Bears. It was a really close, narrow victory for the Lions, and they didn't even look that great against a shaky Bears team. So, also the fact that they can't beat these two teams by a huge by a huge margin is just really disappointing from a Lions team that we and the whole U.S. thought would be way better than they were on Thursday.
Yeah, definitely. So the second game was the only game that we had conflicting opinions on, and that definitely went very wrong for one of us. So it was the Commanders at the Cowboys, and Vince thought that the Commanders would be able to squeeze out a win there, which let's just say it was a little off on that one. I think the final score is 45-10, correct me if I'm wrong. But that was an absolutely crazy game, and you'll hear about a record that was actually broken during that game in the Fast Fact. But Vince, we've seen the Cowboys, especially their defense, pull through, which they definitely did in this game. Dak looked pretty good, and I think the Commanders kind of fell apart. So what do you think the Commanders have to do going forward? Do you think that involves firing Ron Rivera, or just what improvements do they need to make?
Listen, I don't even think it's, what many people would say is Sam Howell's fault as the quarterback for this team. I really think it's Ron Rivera, and I think, getting him fired would just ultimately be better for this Commanders team going forward. He doesn't look the same as what he was with the Panthers back in 2015, and he really isn't the same coach. Whether it comes to play calling or just being having a good morale with the team, he has not looked special at all. So I really think if he gets fired, I think this Commanders team could definitely have a better spark going forward into future seasons.
And like we said in the preview, we said Sam Howell was the most sacked quarterback this season. That definitely showed during this game where just the Cowboys' amazing defensive line was able to punch through on almost every single play. And there were plays that we saw where offensive linemen for the Commanders weren't even on a guy, and the guy could just run straight past the line of scrimmage and sack him. It was a really tough game, and we saw the Commanders actually fire their defensive coordinator after that game, which makes sense because it was just absolutely atrocious to see Dak Prescott play that well against a division rival.
Yeah, I mean, especially against a Cowboys team that has looked good, but also not as best. And listen, I know we're talking about Thanksgiving, but I am truly really excited for the Dolphins-Cowboys game. Listen, we'll get more into preview with that game eventually in coming weeks, but man, that I really think that will show who would be the better team going into the playoffs, because we know that both of these teams are not the best when it comes to playoffs. I know the Dolphins did end up losing last year in the first round, and the Cowboys did end up losing to the 49ers. So I think that's a game we should definitely watch out for and definitely see and expose either one of these teams.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And like you said, it would definitely expose one of these teams, whether who is really going to be the person who's going to go deep in the playoffs here. So the last game of Thanksgiving featured the 49ers and the Seahawks, and I think it was pretty clear what happened in this game, and especially who really shined in this game. Christian McCaffrey might have had the best running back performance of the season. And, we were talking about Brock Purdy a lot in our preview and how he's looked in the past, but it was all CMC this game. So how much do you think that contributes to the 49ers' success over the last couple of seasons?
Listen, getting CMC in the middle of the season last year really just helped this team going forward. And I think we could definitely see a lot from this 49ers team in coming, not even just this season and postseason, I think in coming seasons. And I wouldn't be surprised, I know his contract isn't up, but when he would definitely get re-signed by the 49ers team, this 49ers team, especially just because how much they use him. He's a very valuable asset for this 49ers team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they just keep him until he retires, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that he was just a very strong piece of the puzzle, especially in the Seahawks game. I mean, I think he got every touchdown in the game or every offensive touchdown in the game for the 49ers, which is huge, especially against a team like the Seahawks, a division rival, and especially for a team just like the 49ers in general. Having a playmaker like that where you are guaranteed to maybe not have the best quarterback or what they thought would be the best quarterback in Brock Purdy and still have a guy on offense who will get you yards and get you points. So that was definitely a very fun game to watch. And now it's time for another edition of Makers or Fakers. We have the Buffalo Bills, who we've talked about extensively over the last couple episodes, so go check them out if you haven't already. The Bills have looked shaky. They should be one of the best teams in the league with Josh Allen and Diggs. So Vince, what do you think? Are they going to be makers or are they going to be fakers?
I think they're going to be fakers, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make the playoffs. Listen, Week 18 against the Dolphins, I think it really just shows what they will do when it comes to the playoffs. If they do end up beating the Dolphins, I think that they do have a good shot. It will be definitely a huge game, just because if they do win that game in Week 18, they can make the playoffs. They don't have the toughest schedule, but still, I just think that they will be fakers. I don't think that they will beat that Dolphins team, and I don't think they will win that many games in the rest of the season. They haven't looked that good. I mean, they beat the Jets last week, but still, they have not looked special at all. And I just think that they're not the same team we've seen these last 3 to 4 seasons.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that Josh Allen and the offense especially just need to do a better job of scoring points and making good plays, because they were making number one, they were making some interesting play calls. And number two, they were just not playing the way an offense of that caliber should. So I think that they're definitely going to need to make some changes. But I'm going to disagree with you. I'm still going to say they're makers. I think they're too strong of a team to fall that far. And I think that they're just going to, they've started to bounce back, especially proving themselves with a big win against the Jets. So I think that they're still staying pretty much at a level a team like them should be, but I think that they should be much higher. So we actually have a treat for you. We have 2 makers or fakers today. The next is a team we already talked about in this episode. The Lions, coming off a tight win against the Bears, which is not something anyone should be saying, and also coming off a loss against the Packers, which, again, also not something that anyone should be saying. So the Lions, do you think that they're going to continue their bit of a downward spiral, or do you think that they're going to bounce back to what they were like at the beginning of the season?
Listen, they definitely will be makers, but I don't know when it comes to being in the playoffs, will they be able to succeed? What if they do end up playing the 49ers in the second round of the playoffs? Will they be able, to win? That's really the question when it comes to this Lions team. Will they be able to win when it comes to being in the postseason, which they haven't really been in, ages, since 2016? So I know they will be makers. I know they will make the playoffs. Take a look at their schedule. They have the easiest schedule in football by a mile. But it just depends what they will do in the postseason. But I don't think they will make it in the postseason. I personally don't think they will win in the postseason, but I know they will make it there for a fact.
I'm gonna disagree once again with you on this one. I think that they're fakers, and I think that that easy schedule is kind of not helping them here. Because if they do actually make it to the playoffs, what are they going to do against a really good team like the Bills, or potentially the Bills or the Dolphins or something like that? Like how well are they going to do against these strong teams, especially from what we've seen against teams like the Packers and the Bears, who are both definitely not making the postseason. So I think that they are just, if they do make the postseason, they're not strong enough, but I think that they're just going to continue that downward spiral.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but listen, they don't look great right now. I know, based off the last two games they've played, but I just think they will make the postseason. And I think that we got to take a look at what they're facing with the schedule. It's the easiest schedule in football, Andrew. I mean, it really is so easy. And I think it's a fly. Like it's just a run by. Like they will fly through that schedule without ease.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, speaking of other teams who've been a little bit of a disappointment as of late, what is going on with the New York Jets? And that was just an absolutely embarrassing performance on Black Friday yesterday, and same for the last couple of weeks. And they've finally listened to people, demoted Zach Wilson to, I think, QB3. Now they're starting Boyle, who I don't know. Again, none of these guys are really the quarterbacks that they were expecting to have. And they're saying Aaron Rodgers will be coming back in a couple weeks. But is that really going to help him at this point?
It really won't. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't even make the playoffs. And I think that interception late in the first half, that Hail Mary, as I say, it was really just a really bad play for them. I mean, I was happy just because Javon Holland is my favorite player on that Dolphins team, and due to the fact that he did run that back to the house on a 99-yarder, I was really happy. But go back to the Jets. Yeah, that play right there. That was definitely the downfall for them. I don't think that they will be able to succeed after that play. I think that their momentum that was going into the season with high hopes is now really low down. So. Yeah, that was really just a downing point for them, and I don't think even if Aaron Rodgers does make a comeback, it would be as good for them. And before I go on with what I was saying, Zach Wilson, he wasn't supposed to play this season, and as a fan of the NFL in general, knowing that this young quarterback is not his momentum goes down. Now he's placed third on the roster in the depth chart. He wasn't even supposed to play this season. He was supposed to be on the sideline and learn from one of the best quarterbacks of all time in Aaron Rodgers. But now, without that momentum there, I think it's just going to be a really downfall, and I don't think he will be the same player the rest of his career.
Yeah, and I agree with you that Hail Mary, or the Fail Mary, I guess we should say, was the downfall of the Jets, and especially the coaching. They brought in Nathaniel Hackett this year to kind of solve the offense a little bit more and bring Aaron Rodgers and all those guys together. And that was the most embarrassing play I think I've seen this whole season. We've had some bad plays.
Listen, the fact that they couldn't stop Javon Holland, who, again, isn't the fastest player on this Dolphins team, it's really just a disappointment for just the offense and defense in general. Just not a good look for the Jets at all.
Yeah, and on the goal line too is where they intercepted it from, which is
and we take a look at what they were doing. Listen, we take a look at what they were doing before that play. They got 2 interceptions in under a minute. I mean, the fact that you're picking off one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Tua Tagovailoa. Yes, I am saying he is the best quarterback in the league, and we can debate about this another time. Yeah. But listen, the fact that he's intercepting a quarterback that is really, really good. It's a shock. It's a shock from a Jets team that hasn't looked as special this season for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the Jets are quite interesting. Maybe if we get Jack back on again soon, we could talk about just what happened this season. Because
sorry, Jack.
Yeah. We'll talk about that soon, and hopefully we can get him on just to talk a little bit about what he might be looking to next season, because we know that this season is pretty much done for them. Yeah. So we're going to move on to NCAA football as we usually do next, and we have 3 amazing games happening this Saturday. and they're crazy. One's going on right now that I'm watching, and it's not quite going great for my Alabama. It's the Iron Bowl, Auburn versus Alabama, one of the greatest rivalry games in football. And currently, it's 10-7 Alabama, but Auburn is knocking on their doorstep. So it's going to be interesting to see, and you guys will know what happened. But I'm going to say Alabama is going to run away with this game soon because Auburn, their offense looked pretty good during the second quarter at least, and as they just scored the touchdowns, now it's going to be 13-10 Auburn. But I think that Alabama is going to be able to regroup in the locker room potentially after the second quarter ends. Nick Saban's going to give great speech as usual, and Jalen Milroe, I think they just need him to start running more for this game to really be going Alabama's way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that this Alabama team can definitely make a comeback. I mean, we know from guys like Jalen Milroe who have been one of the more special quarterbacks in this college football season for sure, without a doubt. He could be, and he might be a Heisman finalist. So I think that this Alabama team can definitely make a comeback. I know they're losing 14-0 right now at the moment, but yeah,
14-10.
Okay, 14-10. My bad. Yeah. Listen,
Yeah.
I know this Alabama team can make a comeback. They have the most special coach in all of college football, so I know they will be able to make a comeback. It just depends in the second half on how well they perform, in my opinion. It really just depends on what they do in the second quarter, in the second half.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. I think their running game has looked a little sloppy today so far, and I think Jalen Milroe needs to start using his legs again because we've seen when they've succeeded in the past couple of weeks, it was all Jalen Milroe kind of going crazy there, which was great. So the second game, the one I think you're most excited about, University of Florida versus Florida State. The underdogs here, I think, unfortunately for you, are going to be University of Florida, but they have looked good, and I think that this is definitely going to be a very entertaining game. So do you have any insight into this game, Vince?
Listen, a lot of downs have happened to both of these teams. Jordan Travis going down with an injury last week, actually, and he got hurt, broke his leg, and is out for the rest of the season. And Graham Mertz ended up having an abdominal strain, and he's out for the season, our quarterback. A lot of downs for both of these teams. But just like I said in week 3 against the University of Tennessee, when it comes to playing in the swamp on a primetime game, the University of Florida knows what to do. The swamp is special. It's a special place to play. And I'm telling you right now, this University of Florida team will win. All right? When it comes to playing in the swamp in a primetime game, it's unimaginable. It's something that we haven't seen ever. And I just want to say something. The University of Florida State, they don't know what they're dealing with. They know that the swamp is special. They played against us for many years. I'm telling you right now, this swamp is going to be special. All right, I'm telling you. So listen, Give me the Gators. I know this is a really emotional game for both of these teams. I know that the Gators don't really need to win, but I'm telling you, they will.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be an interesting game. I'm not going to make any pick here out of respect for you and your little rant/tangent you just went off on there. And I agree with you. We saw during the Tennessee game that the swamp was able to put some pressure on Tennessee, especially because they were the favorites going into that game.
I mean, look what happened to Tennessee. They had a downfall of the century. Look what they did last year, and now look what they're doing this year. They're not the same team. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know who the quarterback is for Florida State. He's a random. He's a bum, all right? They will not be able to put any pressure on us. We are putting the pressure on them. The swamp gets excited. It's a sold-out crowd against a Florida State team that is not going to be as special without Jordan Travis. Because listen, not having your starting quarterback, which I know we don't, but not having Jordan Travis, who is, a Heisman candidate at least, not having him as a starting quarterback for this game is going to be hard for them. And I'm telling you right now, this top 10 defense in the Gators, we're coming strong, baby.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game, and I'm excited to see it. And the last big game of the day in rivalry week, Ohio State versus Michigan. This one's unfortunately over, and it did not go the way that I wanted it to go. And that last play, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, that was just absolutely heartbreaking for Ohio State because they had the momentum going into that play, just a straight pick to to Michigan defender, and that'll do the game. So Michigan did walk away with the win on this one. Vince, anything you noticed in this game?
Listen, I mean, again, props to Michigan winning. It's not really something that I was expecting. Actually, I was expecting Ohio State to win. Due to the fact that they have guys like Maserati Marv and Kyle McCord, who I want to touch on real quick. He's not a good quarterback at all. I don't know if Ohio State wants to keep him for the rest of his career in college football, but I think they should move on from him. Especially losing 3 games in a row. I know it's not his fault. It's his first season, but Ryan Day, real quick. I want to touch on that real quick. Ryan Day, Kyle McCord, you're getting fired because of that man. Ryan Day is getting fired from the Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, the fact that you lose 3 games in a row to Michigan we haven't seen something like that since 1995 to 1997. That is something outrageous. No one would have thought that, Michigan probably would have won 3 games in a row. If you would have told that to someone in 2021, trust me, they would not believe you.
Yeah, and just a quick update on the Alabama game. Jalen Milroe just threw a 68-yard touchdown reception.
What did I say?
And now it's 17-14 Auburn after Will Reichard, who's inching closer to that record. He's 4 off the record now. So that's the extra point kick. And you were right. The momentum at the end of the half here definitely going Alabama's way. And that was
listen. Yeah, I'm telling you, they're coming strong, baby. They're coming strong in the second half. Watch out.
Yeah, and that was definitely just an amazing throw from Jalen Milroe there. And Burton has really shown through as one of the best wide receivers on the team and in the SEC this year. So we have, speaking of Alabama, the SEC championship is coming up. So we're going to make our picks on that this week, and we'll touch on other bowl games next episode. But it's Alabama versus Georgia, the rematch. And this is going to be a crazy game. Alabama had that 1 loss to Texas. Georgia has remained undefeated. They do have that 1 game left tonight, but they are definitely heavily favored to win that one. So, Vince, who do you have winning this game? And I'm kind of scared to hear what you have to say here.
Listen, playing in Atlanta is something that, from both of these teams in the SEC championship, which is something we've seen a lot. And they've been playing each other in the SEC championship for a while now, a couple of years, I'd say. Listen, I know Georgia's beating them every single time, but I got Bama. Listen, I'm telling you, I think that Bama has a shot. I think that they know they know what's up. Listen, I'm telling you, I know that they're falling a little bit short to Auburn right now, but I'm telling you right now, it's Alabama team when it comes to playing in big games. They know what's up, especially against the Georgia team. And we've seen what Nick Saban could do against Georgia. 2018 national championship with Tua Tagovailoa. They were down, and Tua came out of nowhere and just started throwing bombs and won the game on a game-winning touchdown in overtime. So I'm telling you right now that Nick Saban can definitely lead this team to a victory.
Yeah, I agree with you, and especially from what I just saw from Jalen Milroe, and if he uses his feet, I think Jalen Milroe is a real weapon, and we haven't seen him play against Georgia's defense yet, but I think Alabama is also going to walk away with this game, and I'm not really being biased there. I think that they have the momentum, and
listen, coming from me too, a chance here. Listen, coming from me too, I don't like any of these teams. I personally don't like Georgia most, but listen, I just definitely agree that Alabama will win for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So last bit in the NCAA, Arch Manning has debuted as a Texas Longhorn, and they won 57-7 over Texas Tech, which is absolutely just great for him. I think he made 2 or 3 completions there on 5 attempts. And, there was the surprise when the Texas quarterback will be coming back for his senior year, which may mean Arch Manning isn't going to get a chance to start next year yet. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, but it's cool to see him in a college uniform this year. So we're going to move on to the NBA. We have our third Makers or Fakers in this episode. As you can see, we're really liking this segment, and we're going to keep it coming. So Makers or Fakers, we have the Thunder. What do you think about this team here, Vince?
So I really like this team. I think Chet Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are really 2 special key players to this team. And I think we could, I know I didn't say they were makers or fakers. I think that they are makers. I mean, if you take a look at what they've done this season and last season for sure, getting young guys, they are the youngest group in the NBA. And when you put these guys together, it's a learning process, but I know they can definitely make it out and make it to the playoffs. Because trust me, the West is not that strong, and I know for a fact that this team could definitely make it there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And something important that is different about this young team to other young teams is they've been building up the squad, and they've been like putting all the pieces together that they've been building up, and now it's really starting to work. So I'm going to agree with you. I think the Thunder are makers, and I think they've just looked so strong. So I think that they're just going to continue to work their way through the season. So in soccer, last week we talked about Man City versus Liverpool, and that game did happen today, and it ended in a draw after goals from Haaland and Trent Alexander-Arnold, and the gap remains at 1 point between Man City in first and Liverpool in second. So this is going to be an amazing rest of the Premier League season, and it's definitely going to be a tight matchup between these two superpowers. And don't count teams like Arsenal and those guys out yet, because I think that neither of these two teams, unfortunately, I'm kind of ripping on my own team here, but neither of these two teams really have it locked in yet, either first or second place. So I think it's going to be fun to see how this season finishes here.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that they would have ended in a draw, I would have not believed you. I mean, but listen, I think that this draw could definitely mean something going forward in the rest of the season. What if these teams are like one game back into making it to, winning the Premier League? It could definitely hurt, a standing prediction, like just going forward in the rest of the season. I think it just definitely hurt them. But yeah, I don't really know like how to feel about this, but I definitely do think, I'm sorry, Andrew, I think Man City is just a better team. And I think that going the rest of the season, I think it'd just be way better than Liverpool.
Yeah, and from what we saw in this game, they dominated the possession, and they just looked like overall stronger, especially when they were on the offensive attack. So I think that's going to be interesting, and it's just going to matter how they play their next couple of games. But in the game today, Erling Haaland did become the fastest player in EPL history to reach 50 goals after scoring in the 27th minute of the match today. And that goal scared me, but I was happy to see that towards the end there, Liverpool was able to match it. Moving on to the MLB, we've already had some offseason moves made. So former Cardinal Paul DeJong has signed with the White Sox, presumably meaning that shortstop Tim Anderson will not be rejoining the team. Cardinals have signed pitcher Lance Lynn to a 1-year, $10 million contract, which I personally think they're overpaying him a bit, as he's looked a little shaky over the last couple seasons. Aaron Nola, one of the big guys we talked about last couple weeks. We did get our predictions right, Vince. He has re-signed with the Phillies on a 7-year, $172 million contract. Mariners traded third baseman Suarez to the D-backs in exchange for pitcher Vargas and catcher Zavala. And the question for the MLB this week, there's been a lot of talk about Ohtani going to the Cubs. Will this happen?
I do think it will happen. I think that this move will happen. I think that Ohtani is, he does it for the game. I said that, a couple weeks ago that, growing up in Japan, playing baseball is just something that is it just happens to a lot of Japanese players, and playing baseball is something they always did growing up. And I think that, Ohtani loves the game of baseball. And I think that, he doesn't just do it for the money. And I think that, he has the passion and love for the sport. And I think he will go to the Cubs. And listen, I think that he will get along with his team. I think that this is a perfect destination for him. But I wouldn't be surprised, Andrew, if he goes to teams like the Phillies. It really just depends if they can afford him. But if he can make it to the Phillies, trust me, I think they can.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I said the Dodgers, but we'll see what happens, especially with winter meetings coming up. Last but not least, we have the fast fact. So, as I said earlier, the Cowboys had a crazy game on defense and all season, really. Darren Bland set the single-season pick-six record after his 5th of the season against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, and that is absolutely insane and good for the Cowboys defense, because this is something that they really need to shine through this season, especially with a shaky offense. So that's pretty much going to do it for the 16th episode of the Sports Coverage Podcast. Thank you everyone so much for listening, and thank you for your support on Instagram with the reels and things like that, and there'll be more coming this week. So thank you everyone so much for listening. Like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff, and we will see you next week.